Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, Attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens. Our very special guest today is Cindy Green with Texas Parent to Parent, and I'm so grateful for you to be here today, Cindy.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. We really appreciate it.
So we have a lot of families that their kids have aged out of school and they're now going, what do we do? What's out there? And so because I know that it's a huge struggle. And so what are you finding that is really affecting parents when they're trying to, transition from school to basically adulthood, and what do they do?
First, they're completely overwhelmed and they have no idea where to begin. Accessing resources is difficult. If they don't have a plan in place, they're just not prepared at all. I will tell you our biggest population, we work with families who have kiddos 14 and up. Our biggest population is 17 to 22 because families are faced with so many decisions that have to be made. So they're just looking for a place to find somebody to guide them. So really accessing resources, not knowing what's out there, not knowing how to put a plan together, are huge barriers for our families.
So I guess probably the big question is when should parents start this plan? And so
really the sooner the better. School transition starts. The school will start talking with families when their child is 14. But really the sooner you can begin to start processing it and kind of start putting some long-term plans in place, the better the outcome will be. So it's never too early and it's never too late, is what we tell families all the time. We take them where they are, we're going to help them, support them, but the sooner you start processing it. But the reality is families really, even at 14, they struggle to really process what transition planning into adulthood looks like. Even I, as a parent, like when the school started talking to me about my daughter's transition plan at 14, I was like, I'm just trying to get through the day. Like, I can't even think about school not being here or not having the sports that she currently has. I just had to get through the day. So our recommendation on that is, take it one day at a time, gather the information as you can. When families are ready, they'll pick their head up, right? Eventually they're going to have to. So just really trying to support the parents, keep giving them information, because really they are completely overwhelmed and they just need somebody to understand that and to just keep gently nudging them forward.
A lot of times I'm seeing the parents at about 17 right before they turn 18, because those that need guardianships, we see those parents then.
Right.
And then a lot of times you just have families that, are like, we hadn't thought about it. We just assumed that something would occur and, that just kind of would fall into their laps. And like yourself, we have a lot of families that struggle, just getting through the day, taking care of that child that has that disability.
Right.
And so are there some specific things that, that parents can do? I mean, is there, besides obviously reaching out, to you guys, what about in the school district? Are there things they can request that the school, information from the school maybe? What specifically would you like to see them gather early?
So at 14, like I said, the schools are going to start talking to the families and they're going to start putting transition-related goals into the IEPs. When you're looking at those transition goals, try to look longer term. Typically, those IEP meetings are focusing on 1-year increments, but when you start adding transition planning in, you're actually looking past when they're out of school and how can you use the school years effectively and getting the most out of those school years, because those school supports are going to go away, right? So really process, where's your child at? What are their strengths, preference, interests, and needs? make sure that those things are addressed in those transition goals, because that's going to help when you're looking at employment. Social skills are so important. So looking at all of those things and making sure those things are addressed in the transition meetings, those planning goals, is really important. Um, so those are kind of some of the tough ones. And families talk to me all the time about, well, school's not going to stop. Yes, it is. That's called denial. It's a happy place to sit. But the reality is those services are going to go away. So make sure that you're getting the best out of them. And honestly, there are so many great transition people in the school districts. Every school district has something called a TED, Transition Employment Designee. They know about work, they know about resources, employment. They're a wealth of information. So find those key people on your child's campus and talk to them. What are your child's dreams and goals, and what are things that you can do to work towards that?
So, for the most part, we know that, that kids can stay in school till they're 22. They can do the life skills program, after they, finish, the required, high school, type years. But what happens to, what's out there for those families, for those kids that are 22 and up?
Well, that's the scary world. That's the black cliff that we talk about in transition, that if you don't have a plan in place, then when those school services are gone, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, but a lot of those kids end up sitting at home on the couch, right? Because a plan wasn't put in place. So now the school services are gone and they have no idea where to begin. You have organizations like Texas Workforce Commission to help with vocational rehab. There are things out there, but it's not easy to put them together. So that's why the sooner you start on it and find out what's out there, the better their outcome is going to be when school services are gone.
So what services for people who have disabilities, how are they easy to access? Where do we find those?
Well, they're not easy to access, which is one of the overwhelming things that parents face, is they don't really know what's available out there. We have SSI, we have Medicaid waiver programs for long-term services and supports, Texas Workforce Commission. But the reality is none of those services work together easily. So families are faced with having to learn multiple systems and how to navigate them. Medicaid is the key to long-term services and supports in Texas. So trying to make sure that your child has access to Medicaid. Some families don't even know about the Medicaid waiver programs, which are going to offer some supported employment assistance, attendant care. That would help the transition into adulthood. But we talk to families all the time that nobody's ever told them about it. Their child is 18 or 19. We have a 15 plus year wait list in Texas for those services. So those families are scrambling to figure out what else is out there and trying to piece together different resources, whether it's, some sort of a day program, like I said, employment. We believe that everybody should have the opportunity to work, whether it's volunteering, competitive employment, self-employment. But again, that takes time, energy, and resources. And families really they're tired. By the time their child gets 18, 19, they're just like, we're done. The other thing that I tell families is, because I have some families that their child has met the academic requirements to get a certificate of attendance and move into the 18 plus transition program. And families are like, I've had enough. I've had enough ARD meetings. I'm tired of it. And my question back to them is, oh, well, what is your plan for your child? When those school services are gone and they're like, oh, well, I don't have one. So I'm like, you might consider it, because it'll buy you a little bit more time to really figure out what services are out there, how to access them in a way that's appropriate for your child.
Now, Texas Parent to Parent has some amazing programs. And one of your amazing programs is your Adulthood Transition Program. So can you tell our listeners more about the program and when they should, start the program, and all the good information
Absolutely.
Down the road.
Yes, thank you. I'm pretty biased, but I think the transition program is pretty awesome too. So it's called Pathways to Adulthood. It was funded about 8 years ago. We realized that families, our kids are getting older. Transition is a hot topic. Families are overwhelmed. So we created our transition program. We do one-on-one phone calls now with COVID, everything, all of our trainings have gone virtually. But we do trainings on, the emotions of transition, school, legal stuff, how do you do long-term financial planning? Where's my child going to live, work, and build a network of support? All of those things that parents are facing. So we do our workshops. We do, like I said, one-on-one, email, phone. We're now doing Zoom. We were very excited. In February of 2020, we received a grant from Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities to open our Transition Center of Central Texas. It is where we can do more intensive one-on-one meetings with families. We go through a transition inventory and look at what have you done? What do you need to do? Are there resources? We set goals at the end of the meeting, follow up with the families. So we're really there to support the families because we often talk to so many families that are just kind of stuck, right? And we want to help them. As parents, we know how hard it is. So we want to help them get unstuck. So the Transition Center is available because of our virtual platform. We can now do it statewide. So we're offering it statewide. That's a 1 to 1.5 hour meeting. Again, where we're really looking at all of these important domains of life to see where can we help them or help them learn about things that they didn't know that they needed to know about, right? We run across that all the time. So we're very excited about that. From the Transition Center, we'll be creating a transition mentor program. Right now, we have a small staff of 3 in the transition program, which is just not enough. Texas is a really big state, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to have transition mentors who are ready to talk to other families, whether it's SSI or help them understand guardianship and alternatives. We're doing something called transition action groups, where we get small groups of people together to set goals. They may have a common thing that they want to work on, whether it's employment or building a personal support network. Then we have our personal networks of support, which is where we have a trained facilitator work with the family to build intentional community around the person at risk for isolation. So that was a program it's in Canada, and Canada is very innovative with their programs for people with disabilities. So the founder of the transition program, Rosemary Alexander, she went to Canada because she wanted more. She wanted to know what would happen to her son if she was no longer here. And how was all this work that she put in, how was it going to sustain past her? So she brought back, we've now have Texas Network Connections, where we can support families to build that intentional community for their child, which really brings a lot of peace of mind to families. But we realize that until they feel really supported in just the day-to-day stuff, the personal network's not on their radar yet because it's another thing. So that's where the center came in. At Texas Parent to Parent, we also support younger families on our family support team. We do an annual conference every year. It's virtual this year. It's July 16th and 17th. It'll be held via Zoom. We'll have 26 breakout sessions over those 2 days and hope to be back in full force in 2022, where we'll be in Austin. And usually we have over 60 breakout sessions. It's a great way for families to connect with each other, to learn more information. So that's kind of how we can help. Again, I think one of the things that we really bring to the forefront is we are parents. Everybody on our team, we are parents. My team, we actually have the 26, 27-year-olds. Just by chance, I don't know how that happened, but just by chance. But we know we're working in the systems. We're trying to navigate the systems too. And I often laugh because people say, well, you work at Texas Parent to Parent. You have it all figured out. Nope, I'm right there with you, right? Like we're trying to figure it out right along with the parents. And I think that helps them knowing that they're not alone. They are not alone, that we're out there, we're supporting them. So they just need to reach out. And our job is to support them, help them prioritize, because when they call, they're like all over the place, right? Like they're just like, oh, where do I go? And so we can kind of help guide them. If their child is 17, what are you looking at legal stuff? Here are some things to consider. Or your child's going to age out of school. What is your plan, right? So we're there to really support them in all aspects of transition to adulthood.
I think it's so helpful for parents when they're reaching out to know that, Cindy, you have a child that has a disability. So you're a little ahead of me maybe, in what's out there and what can we do, and I think that you find that a lot of parents that have children with disability tend to fall into those kind of categories. And so, but I just think it makes you so much better at what you do, so, because, from my perspective, I look at, how can I do better, and a lot of my personal life has made my practice better. I have a child that has a disability, but hers is physical, and it didn't happen until she was 14. So it was very traumatic, in that aspect. And so we always look at, ways of, helping our parents and things like that. And so, and this is such a good program. So,
Thank you.
So Cindy, how do people find you?
All right. So you can go to our website. It's www.tx, P as in Paul, the number 2, P as in Paul.org. And you can request information from there. My email address is cynda.green, green, @txp2p.org. And my direct line is 737-484-9045. So reach out and I will be happy to support you however I can.
Perfect. And so thank you so much for being on the show and talking to our parents about, the great program that y'all have now, because there's a lot of parents out there that, really are going to need your services either now or in the future. And so thank you so much. And we look forward to having you on the show again.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.